Hey guys and girls, how's it going? Hope you guys are having a great week. So we are back today with our second end of the year review. Today's one is not as happy as the last one. So in today's video, we are going to discuss what our biggest disappointments were for 2022. So obviously I've got a Fish here with me and a Dante here with me. Thank you for joining again, guys.
Yo!
And yeah, we're here today to talk about our biggest disappointments. So let's just jump straight in, not beat around the bush. Fish, what was your first disappointment of last year?
My first disappointment was the one that came out earliest in the year, and that was The Ascent. What a game that looked like it was going to be. I thoroughly saw that and went, hey, multiplayer, isometric, shooter.
Set in a cyberpunk world.
Cyberpunk world, character customization, wave after wave. This looks like it's going to be amazing. And it was, until you tried to play it. And it was just broken. I lost count how many times we had to have people quit out of a game, rejoin a game, how many times it desynced, how many times people dropped out, how many times the missions didn't line up and people couldn't see other people. I mean, what an absolutely godforsaken broken mess that game was. And it was just, it was like they went into it and hadn't tested it at all. Or if they had tested it, then they just went, fuck it, it'll be fine. Excuse the language, but Jesus Christ. That, as somebody, I'm alright, I've not worked in game testing, but I've worked in, user acceptance testing. I was like, did nobody look at this? Who in their right mind thought this was okay to release? Because it was unplayable. And that was such a shame. I mean, we got to the end of it, but not as a team. It was fine playing it single player. But when you've got... Well, it wasn't fine playing it single player. It still had its moments where things bugged out and certain story events went, go to this area and wait for the enemies to show up. And then they didn't show up. And you were just stood there like a lemon waiting for things to come to kill, which never came. So then it just basically locked you out of progressing in the story, so you had to crash the game and restart it. So even single player was inexcusably buggy at times. But for a game that was primarily marketed as a multiplayer experience, it was just awful. Which, given its styles, its creation, the level of effort that had gone into making that world. I mean, the characters for the NPCs, the lore and the story had clearly gone through it with a fine tooth comb to make that such a beautiful and immersive world, which was just completely undermined by the fact that it was practically unplayable. Which again is just letting down such a large part of a team, when so much care and love has clearly gone into designing a game, but when it comes to making said game, it's like they just went, oh, sod it, that'll do, put it out.
They run out of time maybe for like the whole quality control and stuff, which is, I think it needs to be even longer period of time. I think so many games
it's
come out a buggy mess. It's a problem with modern games currently. Is
get it out the door, it'll be fine.
We'll fix it later, we'll patch it later. But as far as I'm concerned, like, you really have a one shot with that game.
Your first impression,
It's important, definitely. I mean, I think we played it on Game Pass, didn't we? Which, in a way, thank God, because obviously if you'd spent money on this game, I'd want a refund. Didn't you buy it on Steam?
You played it on Game Pass. I bought it.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And that's what pushed you to actually complete it. because I
was like, I've spent the money on this, I'm going to play the damn thing.
Did you actually beat it then? Did you complete it?
Yeah, I finished the story and it was alright. Again, it wasn't an earth-shattering story. It was pretty mediocre. Like I said, the lore and the world was fine, but the actual single player you get to the end of its story was relatively tame. So yeah,
which you wouldn't want for a cyberpunk world. The idea of it being cyberpunk is it goes out there. It goes to dark places. You know, that's the whole idea of it. I'm curious to check it out again, to see if it is better, see if they have fixed it. But I still feel, yeah, it should have been delayed. It should never have come out in the state that it was in. 100% agree with you on that one. But I am curious to check it in, and then we could play it. I don't know if you want to play it through second time. You might not want to.
If
Your time is valuable. I know, but
to be honest, if it actually plays ball, you probably could complete it as a group rather quickly. It's not. I think I spent about 20 hours on it.
Okay,
to
so it's
complete
not too
it.
bad. It's just a couple of sessions, sort of meet up and
So
stuff.
you could probably, as a group, assuming it played, fair, you could probably beat that as a group in a couple of sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just remembering its quirks, like when one of us would have to talk to an NPC to get a quest, and so they'd kind of be in their cutscene type thing with the text and all this and that, and the rest of us would be like, what are we doing here? Are we supposed to talk to it as well? I'm frozen. Why am I frozen? Oh, the game's locked up. But I'm supposed to get the same and it was just a mess, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like the multiplayer side of things. They just didn't test any of it at all. Yeah, it was definitely one of the games I was most excited for. That's why I think I mentioned it to you all, because I'm like, this looks awesome. Do you guys want to jump in?
I was excited for it. It looked great, which is what makes it a big disappointment.
Yeah, I was the same. It was such a shame. It really was. Dante, what about you? One of your biggest disappointments?
A weird one, because it's Pokemon Violet / Scarlet. Because I'm still sinking hours into it post game. I've completed it. Or it's a really good game. However. There's a big however. It's just buggy to heck visually, and needed a lot more time in the oven, basically.
Yeah.
It's another one where little camera glitches, little clip-ins, frame rate issues up the wazoo, and when you think between Game Freak, Pokemon Company, and all that, you'd think they'd have the backing and money or staff to.
Well, they've certainly got the money.
Yeah, they've got the money. They just don't have the staff. It's like they haven't hired for it. It's like 150 staff or something.
But I think this is what
big franchise
people regularly forget. Yeah, it's licensed by Nintendo. Game Freak is not a AAA developer, and I think people regularly forget that.
But they really should be by now. They should have had the financial backing behind them to grow, like other indie developers that started out as indie now have grown and expanded because they have the backing. I mean, honestly, I feel like if Pokemon was a first party, it'd be better.
Well,
for the franchise.
if it was a Nintendo first party like Breath of the Wild, they'd just delay it. They'd be like, no, it's all got. But I think it's all because it's all integral with the Pokemon Company and the merchandise, the anime, all this and that they're getting them out on. They've got deadlines, and
the trading card game, everything's linked
everything.
with everything.
It's all linked. So even Legends Arceus should have had a bit more time, and it feels like it got rushed out to a particular
It's one
deadline.
of the worst looking Pokemon games I've ever seen. Even when I've watched you play it, it's awful.
That's the biggest part, though, is it's worse than Legends Arceus.
A lot worse.
The bugs, the things that I had a problem with Arceus, which I was prepared to forgive in Arceus, because it's their first attempt at an open world style game.
Yeah,
they're not a AAA developer.
For this.
It was very clearly testing the water to see how they could do it. But with Scarlet and Violet, it's like it's actually taken steps back, and they've not learned anything. They've not polished anything, and it's worse than Arceus.
I don't think they could learn, though. I mean, Arceus came out in January, right? And Scarlet, well, it came out early in the year. I can't remember when it came out, but in development terms, Scarlet and Violet would have been in that post-production, we're getting ready for launch, we're doing quality testing. I feel like they were handled by two different teams in Game Freak that never communicated.
Like I say, I'm not. because we don't have the full background, we'll never know. Like,
you know, there's
doing
gonna be.
what and
I
all this
wonder.
and
I
that.
wonder if like Jason
But-
Schreier will do this like deep dive behind the
Deep dive,
scenes.
we go behind the scenes.
Right,
talk to
kind
them.
of. What happened? Like he did with like frigging Anthem,
Yeah.
and like they had
stuff like
literally
that.
12 months on the game actually developing it because of the
Although that-
mismanagement and everything.
Yeah, although that said, Cyberpunk just straight lied
Yeah, they
in
did.
their trailers and this and that.
Yeah, they
where-
did. Yeah.
Whereas, like, the Pokemon trailers up to the point people
Looked
were like,
awful.
pointing at stuff and going, "We know what we're getting."
I know, but that doesn't make it right though.
No, no, and
Like
it's definitely
like
disappointing.
Pokemon, the fans deserve better. It's
I
like
think
an
that's the frustrating-
it's like an abusive relationship. It's like we always get shit, but we'll take it anyway because we want it, you know. And
Well,
it's
again,
like-
from a company perspective, again, that's the point, is it? Is only we stop this behaviour by not buying it.
exactly,
Because
yeah.
the reality is if they know that they are going to
Yeah.
sell it regardless, they'll release it.
Yeah.
So I can't criticize them because from a
And-
business perspective, it makes sense to sell it.
It
even if
still
you know you're gonna get-
sold millions of copies, given
Yeah.
In
even
3
though
days,
in 3 days, I think it was more than even Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty. Like
It was also because it was the first proper open world Pokemon. Like Legends Arceus did like 4 contained mini open worlds, kind of.
Mhm.
So that's probably
Yeah.
why it got away with less
A lot.
glitches and stuff like that.
probably.
Whereas this was the first big proper one that all the fans have been waiting for flipping generations now.
Mhm.
Going, they really wanted to see that, and it's pretty much there. That's the main problem and the biggest disappointment. Is it's all there. You're enjoying it. They've actually did a decent job on characters and story this time.
Mm.
I've not
and-
enjoyed a Pokemon story like this since, and
Since what? Sorry,
love
you
it.
broke up there.
Yeah, you broke out.
since Pokemon Gold and Silver. That was the last time I really enjoyed a Pokemon story this much. And
It-
yeah, what again lets it down is just its performance.
Yeah, it's mad, and just the shortcuts and little bits they've had to do now, like because like there's all the other little things as well, more quality of life things they took from Arceus, more little bits of this and that, and it's all like, oh, this is going to be amazing, this is awesome, and then you just play Frank because you want to be immersed in that world, and then you'll finish a battle and you'll be looking underneath the ground to see some buildings and the sea over there, and you're like, what's happening?
They just
And
pull
then
you
or
out.
in the
Yeah.
distance you're like, because they're rendering, like I think they can only render like 15 Pokemon on screen at once,
Mhm.
so you'll be able to despawn and respawn things just by going out certain distances, and they'll use
I think the biggest one for me is even in some of the cutscenes. There was one cutscene particularly caught me off
Oh.
guard in a class. It's like
Yeah, the
you've got a
classroom at the
classroom,
beginning.
you've got a classroom
I've
with like
seen
20
this,
NPCs, which should be a pre-rendered thing, and there's 5 or 6 NPCs all doing the same motion in sync with a terrible frame rate. So they're all going.
yeah
It's like,
Oh.
gee, but because you can see it with like 6 different NPCs on the screen at once in sync, it's terrible.
it
It-
makes
And-
just
Anthem had
bloody
the same
awful.
problem. Do you remember that
Why?
scene in Anthem where those 2 guys were stood next to each other doing
Oh,
the
yeah.
exact same animation? It's like screams of
then-
laziness. I think it's just it didn't need to have 2 Yeah, the T-pose. Yeah, I've seen some of the bug videos on Scarlet and Violet, and they're just like
some of them
hilarious. They're so
yeah,
bad.
most of them seem to be linked to the multiplayer, which also is an amazing kind of thing, because it's like you've never been able to properly
Explore a world together.
explore
Yeah.
with 2, 3, 4 players, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh, that's
yeah.
genius. But of course then it comes with its own extra little bugs and all that, because it needed more time in the oven.
It's ambitious. they need to stop.
Yeah.
Like, because they've had 2 huge Pokemon games come out this year, Arceus
Yeah.
and Scarlet
We
and
could've
Violet.
waited.
They could have
was
waited.
like,
They
as-
didn't need
as
to
a
both
fan
come
of
out
the
in the same
franchise,
year.
I would rather wait
Yeah.
for
Hmm.
another year for it to be completely polished. People
Yeah.
love to say it's the hardware. It's not. The Switch is capable of better. We
Mhm.
know it's capable of better. It's not
Yeah.
the hardware.
Yeah,
This
there's
is
games
later
out there that are
production.
proof of that. Breath of the Wild is proof that you can have a gorgeous working open world, right?
Yeah.
Like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is gorgeous looking, huge, massive, all the wildlife and everything that interacts, and then all the particle effects and all, like, you can, yeah, you're right, it is lazy development, and it's cutting corners because you've got a limited amount of time to make it.
Yeah, like the guys that ported Witcher 3, they've squashed it all onto that cart just by snapping up all the code, getting rid of all the crap, making it run as good as it can. And I'm sure that they could do it, or if they get some help in, but that's why I'm suspecting the deadlines.
They've got to have experience in that studio.
Yeah.
I mean.
But that's it. It feels like, even though they've put in so much into it, it still feels rushed. It still feels like they're being told, we've got to get this game out. And at that point, it's like, ugh.
It's crazy though, isn't it? Like when you see games like Cyberpunk 2077 that released, you know, in an unplayable, broken state on the PlayStation 4, right? And an open world that was a buggy mess. And the sheer visceral reaction to that, and people going to Sony saying, I want a refund, and Sony having to give refunds and remove it from the shop floor because it was a broken state until CD Projekt Red fixed that game, right? And you look at the reaction to Cyberpunk of the way in which, and you know what I mean? You've got Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that similar, like awful game-breaking bugs, glitches, awful frame rate, like but they just pull you out of it.
Yeah, it definitely pulls you out.
You can't enjoy the experience because you're constantly.
I've not come across any game-breaking, but it's still massive disappointment.
Yeah, and it was the same with Cyberpunk, but it just seems like such a, I don't know, like a double standard in a way. I feel bad for CD Projekt Red to a respect, because the amount of money that they lost through, and they deserve, you know, I'm not saying they didn't deserve it, they did. The game should never have released in the state that it was in, and they deserved every backlash and consequence that they got. 100% agree with that.
Especially when showing stuff that
but you look at like the effects, that the consequences that they had to face, the drop in their, like, you know, their share prices, and the legal repercussions of like their investors going, what the hell, you know, are you playing at, and things like that, and then having to issue refunds, and they did all of that, you know, they went through all of that, and I'm sure they've learned a lot from it, but yeah, Game Freak get away with it, and they get over 10 million copies sold, they make
and they won't patch it, they won't fix it.
They won't patch it, they won't fix it. That is not right.
Hence the
disappointment. They should be held accountable.
This could be its video in its own right.
It could. It really
it's
could.
It's a good thing I've only got one.
I know. but it's right though, isn't it? It's completely double standard, and that's what I'm talking about. Where like I'm saying, like the fan base, where like it's an abusive relationship, and I get that people have enjoyed the game, and the core of what's there is good, and it's awesome that people can enjoy it. But the game should never have released in the state that it was in, and Game Freak should be held accountable for that.
Because the bigger then concern is, we can get away with that again.
Exactly,
it's
and
like,
they just do it with the next one.
You're gonna get laser, and then you're gonna have this.
I'd rather despair on the future of that, Kate.
What's my biggest disappointment? Is that what you just asked me?
Yeah.
Yeah, your mic keeps cutting out again.
Sorry. I've got two. The first one, probably I would say, is Gotham Knights. I decided to pick this up. I got it in the sale, thankfully, so I didn't pay full price for this game. I am a massive, huge DC fan. I'm a huge comic fan generally. Anyway, I love DC, I love Marvel, but I love the trio. So Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, right? But I love the world of Batman. I've played all of the Arkham games, absolutely love them. I was so interested in a world without Batman, because the premise of Gotham Knights obviously is Batman dies, right? Batman is killed, and then it's a Gotham without Batman. So it's how does Gotham carry on? So you've got Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, and Red Hood. You've got those four characters, and then obviously it was like, well, how do they? And obviously Alfred is there too, bless him. And it's kind of like and it's kind of like, how do they pick up the mantle, of the Dark Knight. And it's also how does the villains and how does that world react to Batman dying? So when I was like, oh my god, that's so interesting and kind of a gutsy move, right? Like, just
I'm
to be
curious
like,
to know then, if Batman's dead, is the Joker about him?
I haven't come across him yet.
Because that'd be interesting. One of my favourite comic books ever has been when Bruce was killed by Darkseid, and the Joker's, in a moment of sanity, went, "Oh, if there's no Batman, I can't be the Joker anymore," and he just stopped being the Joker.
No,
because he's like, there isn't a Batman, so what's the point in going on anymore?
Yeah, there's Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze, there's Penguin, and God, who else is in it? There's a couple of others. Clayface is in it too. Yeah, there's a couple of villains. Obviously Talia al Ghul is in it too. Yeah, and and obviously the big thing is it's the Court of Owls. That's the big thing.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so it explores the Court of Owls. So I'm like, awesome, that's cool, really interested. So I basically went in it for the story. Yeah, that's why I went into it.
Which is good because
and it starts out kind of well, but the story is it's okay, I guess. The voice acting is okay, and if you're just focusing on nothing but the story, it's okay. Like, it's mid, it's okay, but everything else about this game is just soulless. It's the best way I can explain it. So it's like the game is at war with itself. It doesn't know what it is. So it's like when they were developing the game and they developed this open world Gotham that you can explore around. Yeah, they made exploration awful. So like each of the 4 characters, when you first start with them, they only get access to like a grapple hook. So you can grapple onto buildings and grapple from building to building. You have this bike which is just awful. It's like, feels like it's on rails. It's not a patch on, say, like the Batmobile in like Arkham Knight. And I know it's not fair to compare it to the Arkham games because it's its own game, but you can't help but do that. You can't help but compare this Gotham and this the look of Gotham. It's not a patch. I mean, to say that Arkham City and Arkham Knight, Arkham City is 10 years ago, and it looked way better than Gotham Knights looks.
I replayed the Arkham Asylum, and they still stand up today as solid games.
Yeah, the Rocksteady did a great job. I think the difference with those worlds, that Gotham, is they feel alive because they do a good job with all of the like the mooks and stuff. They all talk amongst each other. The streets are filled with things and with stuff happening, and even as you're gliding over and you're on the rooftops, it feels alive. It doesn't feel like that in Gotham Knights. The city feels empty. It feels deserted. You'll have little bits of enemies spattered here and there, for these crimes that you have to solve and whatever, which generally just ends up being like pummel and punch these mooks in a particular time to stop them hacking that ATM or detonating that bomb or whatever. The world just feels dead. So when you're exploring around, and looking at the side content and the side missions, it's boring as hell. It's very repetitive. It's cluttered with icons. Like, you have to unlock fast travel, and the way that you do that is you have these like drones that fly around and you have to scan them, and so you just stood there like waiting for the drone to come around so you can scan it. And then there are these certain drones that have like a shield around them, so you have to wait for them to land on a platform, and then once they've landed you then have to scan them. And this is to unlock fast travel in the world, which you want in an open world game to make it easier for you to move around and do all your stuff. Then each of the 4 characters have this like knighthood tree that they have to unlock, and that gives you access to better traversal. So like Batgirl gets the ability to glide around the city, Nightwing gets access to like a glider. Robin gets access to these like satellites that allow him to be teleported. It's weird. Red Hood has access to these like spiritual like spirit powers that allow him to like jump around and stuff. It just makes traversal easier. You get your better powers and abilities through the knighthood tree, and to unlock that you have to like do the most mundane tasks of like solve 10 crimes in the world, defeat 3 brutes in the world, complete this training module. Like, they're so hollow and boring, and like I could have developed a better game than this.
Didn't have to patch it because of all the complaints.
There's just they did that, and then there are bugs and issues and frame rate issues and stuff. But then like it's awful, and then like you have like this element to it that feels like this kind of like games as a service. Like you have these chests that you open and they give you access to resources,
microtransactions.
Yeah, well there aren't any actually. I feel like that's where they would have gone.
It feels like it was built for it.
It was built
and they
for
changed
it,
their mind.
but then they changed their mind. So I think
they just backed out at the last minute.
I think what they did is they started developing it as a games of a service with like all of the. I mean, the suits look awesome. Some of the suits that you can craft, they look amazing. They are really cool looking. So they're better than Arkham, like than Marvel Avengers in that way. At least they look unique and interesting, and they're pulled from like the comics and everything. But like the materials, there's so many different materials and it's so convoluted. And then you have these mods that you can put onto the suits and weapons to give them particular elemental abilities, and it's just so convoluted and just so messy. And it's like there isn't this clear vision of like this is the type of game that we want to make. There's no vision, and then even the combat feels weightless, and like you just feel weak, and you have these enemies that are like bullet spongy that you have to like pummel. Then you have these other owl enemies that you can't hit them unless you do a charged like batarang attack or ranged attack to then knock them down, and then you can hit them, but you can only hit them. It's awful. So like it had so much potential. The world, like the idea is great, right? The ability to play it like the 4 characters, right? And then like there was just so much potential there, but it just the development of it, the imagination behind it. It's like cookie cutter. It's like they literally went, we need a checklist of things that have to be in every open world game, and we need to make sure we have these in our game. I'm like, why? What does that bring to the game? What does that bring to the story? What does that bring to the experience for that gamer? Awful. Like it can't have had any quality testing of people going, what the fuck is this crap? Like, why are you making players do this? Like, what is the reason behind this? What does it give them, right? What does it add to the world and the lore? Like, the side content in the Arkham series was so much better. It added to the lore, and you had some really cool, like, the Riddler trophies and all the puzzles. Oh, God, it's just not a patch, honestly. I would say if you've played the Arkham games and you enjoy them, don't play Gotham Knights. It's soul-destroying. Or don't buy it full price. Get it on cheap if you want to experience the story. £15 most. So yeah, you can tell how disappointed I was by that game. I've ranted for quite a while, but yes, I was disappointed with it because I'm a big DC fan, I'm a big Batman fan, and I was excited to try it out, and it just it's disappointing. You feel like you're going through the motions with it. Anyway, that's my one over and done with. Fish, what's your other one?
My other one is Cult of the Lamb.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really disappointed by it.
Shame.
Developer Studio have always been outstanding. Everything that they've done for me has been brilliant. So when I saw this really cutesy game with a really sinister, dark undertone, it looked like it was going to be something right up my street. The idea of almost an exploration hack and slash randomly generated map, but then building it in with a almost like small little village manager with members for your village and your cult. Thought this looks great, and fitting in with our reoccurring theme, what seems to have been just the entirety of last year. It was broken. It came out, and I didn't notice to begin with because they don't always appear to begin with. But the moment your cult gets above like 7 members, then things start to raise their heads. I was unaware until about a week after I started playing it that all of your cult members, when you called a daily sermon, were supposed to go into your church, and they didn't. I was getting like 6 of them in at a time, and no one else was coming.
Yeah.
And no, apparently they're all meant to go in. Anyone who's in your cult is all meant to go into the church. It's like, okay, so they're not getting the experience for attending your cults. That was becoming unmanageable.
Wow.
I was getting tasks which were, make these 2 people fight to the death as part of it. But when you called to do that ritual, either one or neither of them are in the list of selectable characters, so the task was completely impossible to actually complete, which means that it would time out and your entire cult would get despondent. There were other things such as, hey, go out into the find X number of these items. I was picking up those items and they weren't registering, so again that's another task that I couldn't complete. And the bigger the cult got and the further into the game I got, the more things started to slow down, the more things would break. The number of times I started to perform a ritual, we'd get the animation, but then it would just stop. The camera would be stuck. I could run around, but I couldn't see anything. The camera wouldn't move, so I could run out of view of the camera, and I'd be stuck in the church. It was like, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And eventually, I never actually finished the game because it was like, it became unplayable. They were the pure definition of game-breaking bugs because you just couldn't do anything. And for something that looked spot on and was right up my street for aesthetics, storytelling, the story I was enjoying, but I just couldn't play the game because there were just too many bugs that stopped it from actually working. And again, I think that was a disappointment because I expected better from Devolver.
Yeah, Devolver have had a good track record with their games and their releases generally.
And for a game that, even as an indie game, for a game that came out as an RRP of £20, that was painful. In its given state, if I'd have paid £3 for that, I'd have felt ripped off.
Did you get it on the Nintendo Switch then? The version?
Yes.
Switch version, right.
But from what I understand...
I've got it on PlayStation, and I have noticed some bugs myself, but I stopped playing it when you talked about those bugs and everything, because I was like, I don't want to have the same experience. So I kind of stopped to wait to see if they're going to patch it up, and I do want to go back in and carry on playing it. And I wonder if they have fixed those issues.
Yeah, I've done the same now. I've left it and might give it a try in the new year.
But I feel like I need to start a brand new game from scratch.
Same, exactly the same for me.
Yeah, because I've forgotten so much of like my cults. And I was doing the Cult of Shepherd, so all my followers were like members of like Mass Effect, the Normandy crew and stuff. I kept killing Ashley all the time as like a running joke, and then I kept feeding Zaid poop as a running joke. So I want to do that again because I was really enjoying it. Maybe I'll stream it even. I think my community would enjoy that. Maybe they can choose who I punish and stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of like that. I stopped playing it because of what you were telling me with all the bugs and everything, and it's such a shame as well. Surprising as well because obviously it got nominated for so many awards this year. But like you say, it didn't release in the best state. So did it? The core of what was there, the ideas behind it were fab.
Absolutely.
But
it was just broken.
Just performance, but that's bad for me. Is that like a game should like performance is key.
you don't want to put that time into it then if you know it's going to fall
Yeah,
to bits near the end.
yeah,
And
and
you're like,
it pulls you out, and it's frustrating,
Mm.
you know, and it's really not good. So okay, my last one then to talk about is a weird one really to talk about, because I've enjoyed the game, kind of like what you did with Pokemon. You know, did you play Violet? Yeah, Dante, I think.
Yeah,
And that is Sonic Frontiers. I've
Pop in.
I've really enjoyed Sonic Frontiers, surprisingly so actually. I kind of went in expecting not to enjoy the game and expecting to be disappointed. I don't know why I bought it. I bought it on sale because I was curious to play it, because it's like the first open world Sonic game, right? Like, it looked very different. I was curious to try it out, and I enjoyed it, but I feel just like you do for the rest of the games that it needed more time in the oven. That it feels like a beta, like an alpha stage of the game. Like, the proof of concept is there, right? The core is like the actual like platforming and the movement and the idea of it is really, really cool. I really enjoyed it. Even the idea of these big, huge bosses like that you have to face and fight is freaking awesome. It's a really cool idea. It's a really cool concept, but it's just so janky in so many ways that it sometimes pulls you out of that experience. So there are times like when I feel that the camera just hates me, and just wants me to die.
Yelled at the camera a lot.
Every friggin' occasion, especially when you're facing some of the bigger bosses. There was this one boss where you had to run up its arm, and it had these like blue rings that you had to go through, and if you hit a red ring it would repel you. You had to run up it while dodging and stuff, then get to the top, and then you had to like attack this thing on the top that had like lasers going around it. But the camera is constantly like swinging in and
Trying
out,
to be dramatic.
trying to track you, but it is just working against you, so you get so confused about where you are. Sometimes where you land just feels completely random. You don't feel like you're actually in control, like sometimes when you're doing these fights. And then obviously, I mean, it's got the, you know, the open world, but it's weird in a way. Like, you've got these different biomes that you explore, and they're all pretty cool, but the like the rails and stuff are just hanging like in the world. They all look very much the same in every area, so it doesn't feel different. It just feels like you're doing the same things in every area. But the popping, because you're traveling fast, you actually do feel fast. It does a very good job of doing that, of feeling like you're Sonic, of feeling that speed. So it does a good job of capturing that, but because you're going so fast, sometimes the game can't keep up with you. So sometimes things will pop in, but sometimes they'll pop in too late. So like you're going along, it's like, shit, I need to get on that, as you've already ran past it, you know, and then you've got to go back around and get back up to it. So there's just things like that just scream of unfinished. But the core of what's there is really good, and that, I think that's why I'm disappointed in it, because I'm like, I hope they continue on in this vein. I hope they take what's there and build on that for the next one. I hope they don't just give it up as a bad job and like go back to the old Sonic, 3D Sonic of what they've done before, which I think would be a huge step backward for them. But yeah, it felt unfinished. It felt like Team Sonic, it needed more time in the oven. And I think that's probably, I enjoyed it, and I am still playing it, and I'm still enjoying it, but there are just little niggly things that just bug you. So there are times where I've been like facing these bosses, I'm like, time out. I need to put the game down before I rage quit this game. I'm done with this, god damn it. Put it down and I'll come back to it later.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, so it's not good when a game is making you do that, you know. Not intentionally anyway. Like Soulsborne games are intentionally wanting you to get there, you know what I mean? It's designed, it's baked into it. But this is not that kind of game, and
designed to tilt.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's probably my second biggest disappointment of the year, probably, is Sonic Frontiers. Okay, it's a lovely happy chat there.
So what have we learned? All you developers out there have to be better bakers.
Yes.
You need to get the oven preheated first.
Yes.
Then you need to keep it in there until it's done.
Until it's
I
done.
would
It's just
rather
right.
wait
Yeah.
for a finished game that has been properly tested than you release it and it be terrible. I much would rather wait.
I'm 100% with you on that
And
too.
then you won't get those instant negative reviews right off the bat. You'll be having everyone going, "Oh, this is glorious."
Yeah. I think all of the ones we've talked about really, apart from Gotham Knights, which has core design problems, but I think
totally a live service game,
I
but
think every other one that
got
we've spoken about, it has been that it needed more time in
Bring back the
development.
Nintendo official seal of quality.
No, just take your time with it. There's certainly, it's not like we're short of games. You know, there's certainly enough games coming out all the time. It
Precisely.
seems like every year they just get stupider and crazier in terms of the volume of games being churned out yearly. It just seems worse every year. It feels that way for me anyway as a content creator. It's like, guys, I can't keep up. I'm working and I can't keep up. I can't play all these games. I have to be more selective, and that is one of my New Year's resolutions for 2023, is to be more selective in what I play and try and get through some of my backlog as well. So obviously looking ahead into next year, are there any games particularly that you're worried about that you think might be potential disappointment? I definitely have one that I think is going to be an absolute flop, and isn't going to live up to all of its marketing and hype and everything.
I wouldn't say worried about, in the sense of I don't think it'll be good, but I'm worried that we still won't see Advance Wars Reboot Camp in 2023.
Oh, yeah.
Where is it?
I'm still wait. We should have had that by now, and I appreciate why it was delayed in the first instance.
Yeah.
But I'm still a little concerned that we still don't have that, and I don't think we'll be getting it this year either, if I'm honest.
Well, especially if it is related to, obviously, you know, what's happening in Ukraine. If they're waiting for that war to end, like,
Before releasing it, then that's ugh.
yeah.
But the last time this happened in Japan with the original games, they never got released.
It didn't actually get released.
Oh, what?
It
Yeah,
was-
they
Because what we
released
saw
one-
of it looked great. Of what we saw.
In Japan, 1 and 2 were released together.
but the original one just never
Yeah.
made it.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's my problem. My concern as well is like they because they've postponed it, it'll just release with a whimper, and like it won't get the traction or
It
the
won't get the
coverage
credit it deserves.
it
The
deserves.
franchise is always.
They'll just
felt
release it really
radar.
quietly, you know.
So
And
it's not
shame.
it's not a disappointment for the game itself, but it will be. I'm not looking forward to
disappointment
seeing
for the
what
community,
happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
which
If it weren't for that game, Intelligent Systems would have brought Fire Emblem over here.
No.
It's like
yeah.
Advance Wars is. I love that game.
Advance
Mm.
Wars gave the foundation for Fire Emblem to be a success,
Yeah, and
and
I know
not
it.
enough credit is given.
Yeah. And I know it's one that you were both really looking forward to. Whether or not it comes out next year, or this year, I should say. Yeah. I hope it does, guys, but not looking good. Is there anything, Dante, for you, or not so much?
Not in particular. I think I'm probably more going to be focusing on my backlog anyway. There's nothing on the horizon where I'm going to like go, oh, that's likely going to suck.
Yeah.
Except the game Yurgo we're going to mention.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
we've seen bits of that.
We've seen bits of that, and
demos
I've played the demo. Yeah, probably the one that I think is going to be an absolute garbage fire is probably Forspoken. A few years ago when it first came out, I'm like, dude, this looks cool. Like, the traversal looks awesome. The idea of using magic and being in like a fantasy world, love it. I like isekai stories, you know, generally. But then I played the demo recently, and I was like, oh god, I actually physically hate this character. I like the cuff that's on her wrist never shuts up. She never shuts up. It's like a lot of that is the problem with a lot of writing currently in like current open world games, where they just constantly talk to you, and they are constantly saying the most mundane shit.
Is
like
it
and
a
obvious
PS5
stuff.
exclusive?
No, it's not. It's PC as well. So it's a PS5 like console exclusive for 2 years, I think. But it's coming out to PC as well. It is coming out on PC as well. But what I played of the demo, like it just the writing, like the little bit I experienced of the banter between her, Frey, and this magical cuff that seems to give her these abilities.
Cringy.
Cringy is probably the best way to put it. They're constantly like throwing barbs at each other for no reason. Like, I'm just like, oh my god, I hate you both. Oh, you're both so toxic. I play games to get away from toxicity, to get away from the reality of the world. I don't need that shit in my video games.
Yeah.
You know, and so it got a case of feeling like, no, I can't even, like, apparently in the settings you can actually switch it off or turn it down, which tells me that the developers know that their shit is annoying. Yeah, the fact that they've included that as an option must be an indicator that they know it's not good.
Yeah.
Which is mind-blowing for me. And then like even the magic, the way in which you utilize your magic and the controls, they're just so convoluted. Like to switch between magics and to switch between your abilities, and then it didn't feel good when I was playing it. So all those things, I was just like, yeah, this game's going to be a disappointment. It doesn't even look visually that amazing, which to say it's, you know, PS5 console exclusive and PC, I'd be expecting some good looking stuff, you know, because there's been some beautiful games. I mean, look at Elden Ring, look at God of War Ragnarok, you know, the locations, even for Horizon Forbidden West was a beautiful looking game.
Yeah.
It pales in comparison to them. So I really do think, like, for Spoken, I'm not getting it. I was gonna get it day one. I was even thinking about reviewing it on the channel, but I'm literally like, I'd rather spend my time and money on other games and cover other content. So I'm gonna wait on it. I'm gonna see what reviewers are saying about it, and I might get it in the sale later to check it out myself, unless reviewers are like, don't play it, it's really bad. But I have set content creators that I follow that I trust. I don't trust IGN, I don't trust GameSpot, I don't trust the big news outlets, because it's all marketing as far as I'm concerned.
It's all pay
for good review. But there are certain content creators that I do trust their opinion, and I will be very closely watching to see what they say. But I expect that we're going to get a lot of, it's mediocre, I don't recommend it. That's what I'm anticipating. But we'll see.
Our message from this video, industry, do better.
Yes, do better, hopefully in 2023 or the years ahead. So there you have it, guys. Those are just some of our biggest disappointments for 2022 and a bit of a look ahead into 2023. Obviously, share in the comment section below any games that you played this year that were disappointing and we should avoid. Please share those with the community. Let's save each other from some horror and heartbreak. Thank you, Fish and Dante, obviously, for joining on this video.
Pleasure as always.
I know it's not the most happy conversation, but it's an important conversation, I do think.
We all need a good vent every now and again.
We do, very much so. But yeah, hope you guys, of course, have a great week. Take care, everybody, and as always, happy gaming. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Johnny.
We should go.